Dun 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 dun. Yes, here we are back at you again with one of the most anticipated reviews of the entire year, and of course this time I will be talking about Superman, written and directed by James Gunn, starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, Eddie Gathegi, Anthony Carrigan, Nathan Fillion, Isabella Merced, and so many others in this stacked ensemble cast. And this, of course, is the jumping off point, the film to kick off James Gunn's DC universe. There was so much riding on this film, especially considering not only the track record that was the DCEU, which wasn't really anything to go home about until James Gunn came in and did The Suicide Squad, the sequel to the terrible film from 2016, and that really is far and away the best movie in the DCEU. And so, of course, when it came to rebooting the DC Universe, it only made sense that James Gunn would be the one to step in and take over that responsibility. And secondly, considering the track record of Superman movies throughout the years, I really don't think that there has been a great Superman movie since the original 1978 Richard Donner film with Christopher Reeve. I really don't. Superman 2, just to run down my history on the series, Superman 2 I think has a lot of great moments, but the ending to that film I think single-handedly handicapped the entire series going forward because it squabbled so much potential that could have been followed up in a third movie. And then they decided to put Richard Pryor in as a tech genius going around going, oh! And, you know, I haven't seen Superman 3, but I've seen clips from it. It is not good. I hear Superman 4 is one of the absolute worst movies ever made. And Superman Returns, which was supposed to be a return to franchise, you know, picking up where the last one left off after Superman 2... Yeah, it's made by Bryan Singer, and yet again, he's made some good movies, but it is so tedious and just so creepy when you watch it again all these years later, and you think to yourself, this was the story they wanted to tell? It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense looking at it now, and I don't think that movie has aged well at all, and somehow is worse than Man of Steel, which Zack Snyder, of course, came in and tried to, you know, create this brooding version of Superman, and it is also a horrible movie. I think I really despise Man of Steel. I just watched it again before seeing this new one, and I think it is a complete betrayal to the character of Superman. So, yet again, not a great track record all these years, and I don't think, from what I've seen at least in the movies, I don't think there has been a great Superman on film since Christopher Reeve completely embodied that character in a way that no other actor has ever embodied a superhero before. And I think he deserved an Oscar nomination for that original film. I just think he's that iconic and just that terrific as a performer. And so this movie, there was a lot of baggage and a lot of legacy that was riding on this film, but thankfully I had a feeling, being in the hands of James Gunn, he was going to do right by the character, and that he absolutely does. This, I think, more than anything, nails the essence of who Superman, who Clark Kent is as a character in a way that I don't think we have really gotten since, you know, the Christopher Reeve era, at least the first two movies. Even though I don't love the second film, I think it completely nails the character still. And I think a lot of this also not just has to do with the writing here, but David Corenswet is hands down the best Superman since Christopher Reeve. And I just think he has the perfect naivete, the perfect charm that this character needs, and the perfect sense of conviction of what he is doing and why he feels he is right. And it is just such a breath of fresh air that we finally get another great actor playing Superman. And I just think he absolutely knocked it out of the park in this film, and I think one of the big standouts, but I think one of the things that stands out more than just David Corenswet is his partner in crime, of course, Lois Lane, played by Rachel Brosnahan in this, who is just, oh my goodness, unbelievably sexy, but also so perfectly fitting to the character of Lois Lane, who will go out of her way to try to mine a story, no matter what the cost, and using that sense of integralistic journalism that she is all about. And I absolutely love their dynamic. I mean, there was one scene with them in this movie, I was like, damn, I did not expect this to get this steamy. Just like I'm feeling in this room right now. It's so damn hot. But yeah, I think the scenes between them really speak to the heart of the movie, and I think were my favorite scenes in the entire film, especially if you've seen the trailer. There's an interview scene that she kind of conducts with them, and the boundaries that she's willing to push, even with someone who she knows very well. It really is just so perfectly nailed and so perfectly written. I think it is an all-time great Superman scene. I truly feel that way. And I honestly think you could put up the argument, who's a better Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan or Margot Kidder? Obviously, she takes a lot from Kidder's portrayal of the character, but really makes it her own. Just such an assertive, kicking ass, taking no names approach to Lois Lane, and I think she absolutely knocks it out of the park. And I have to shout out, easily the best portrayal of this character in particular, Jimmy Olsen, this time played by Skylar Gisondo, who is somehow now known as the CEO of sex. This portrayal of Jimmy Olsen is absolutely off the rails, hysterical, charming. He gets so much to do in this movie, as opposed to a lot of the other portrayals of Jimmy Olsen where he's just like this bumbling idiot kid. No, like, he is actually, not to spoil anything, an integral part of the plot and the story here, and I absolutely love Gisondo's comedic timing. He's always been impressive, from Booksmart all the way to Licorice Pizza. I love whenever I see him on screen. He brings such a specific energy, and he always nails the assignment, so to speak. And so, yeah, I really think this cast is strong all across the board. Nathan Fillion gets a lot to do as Guy Gardner, gets a lot of big laughs in the movie. Some of his humor is a bit overdone, and we'll get into the humor of this film, but I really do think he was a standout as well. Eddie Gathegi is Mr. Terrific. Definitely has some of the most scene-stealing moments in the movie, and I really loved his presence, the way he portrayed that character. And there's also one really, really great James Gunn scene with him. You'll know what I mean when I say that, and I really, really enjoyed him in the film. Sarah Sampaio plays Eve Tessmacher in this, and I think that she gets some of the best comedic moments in the entire movie, along with Skylar Gisondo. Really, really great portrayal of that character. And, you know, that's the thing. Some of these characters aren't going to be how you remember them in the other movies and in the comics, but I do think more than often this is used to enhance the story at hand, and I really, really appreciated that overall. And then again, though, I do think some people are a little short-handed in this movie, like Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl doesn't get enough as I would have liked her to, and of course Wendell Pierce as Perry White in this. I really liked him when he was on screen, but he doesn't get enough to do as, you know, let's say Jackie Cooper did in the original Superman film and Superman 2. Also, he's having a great year. He's in two of the best comic book movies of the year, this and Thunderbolts. So, you know, shout out to Wendell Pierce there. Yeah, I think that there's so much to enjoy about the cast. But the one I really want to talk about is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, because there's a lot riding on the portrayal of this character. And I see this in two different ways. I'm of two different minds when it comes to the portrayal of Lex Luthor in this. Because on one hand, you look at the original film, and you have Gene Hackman, rest in peace, one of the all-time great actors playing Lex Luthor. And I think, in that regard, I do think Gene Hackman gives a better performance as Lex Luthor in that original movie, because I think Hoult sometimes he just feels like he's kind of yelling, and there are some great scenes with him, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the conniving nature that he brings to Lex Luthor, and the fact that you really feel like this tech genius is an actual threat and you buy into it is really, really great. I think a lot of it has to do with the writing of Lex Luthor, and that is why, even though I enjoy Hackman's performance more, I think this portrayal of Lex Luthor is infinitely better, and also maybe the best portrayal of this character in the movies yet. And yet again, like I said, with the character of Superman, I think James Gunn inherently understands what the character of Lex Luthor is and writes him so well to the point that he is legitimately threatening, and you really do feel the stakes of this movie. There's a lot riding on that character in the narrative, and I absolutely think he, while sometimes, maybe could have been a little bit stronger in his conviction and maybe in some of his line delivery in the more intense scenes, I really do think he is a good fit for this character, and I think could grow into the role a bit more as time goes on, because we all know Nicholas Hoult is a great actor, had a great run last year, and yeah, I think the rivalry between him and Superman really, really works overall. And like I said, I do think the heart of this movie is in the right place, even though, without getting into spoilers, I think there's going to be some things that really people are not going to be fond of when it comes to how they play with the lore of Superman. But, unlike Man of Steel, where this guy is barreling through 7-Elevens because he is mad about his mom, or we're watching basically him and Zod commit 9/11 times 10 in Metropolis, I feel like this movie really goes out of its way to course correct the darkness that was in the Snyder films, which in some way it feels a bit blatant, but I really appreciate it, because even with the big drastic changes that they do to Superman's lore, it is all in service to the character of Superman and Clark Kent, who he is, what his upbringing is, and I absolutely love how they incorporate that into the movie, and also how they update Superman to the modern age, how they incorporate all the geopolitical issues that would arise with Superman being in this world, and how metahumans sort of play into that, and also just how social media and television kind of plays in to all of this frenzy with Superman. I think it's captured so well in ways that I don't think any of the other movies have. And I think a lot of plot elements to this movie work better than, let's say, the original Richard Donner film. I would even go that far. I don't think it's a better movie by any means, but I do think it does improve upon some elements that could be considered weaker all the way back in 1978. So there is so much that I enjoy about this movie, and how can I forget to mention Crypto the Superdog? Oh my goodness, look, the CG, when he's moving, you can kind of tell it's a little fake, but I think the visual effects in this movie overall are really, really great. Definitely a step up from The Flash. I mean, that's no competition, but yeah, I do think that just the whole vibe of this movie, the way the camera moves, it feels very motivated. It feels like a filmmaker made a comic book movie, and I can't say that about a lot of comic book movies that have come out in the past few years. But of course, you have James Gunn behind the camera. You are going to feel like it is coming from an actual visionary filmmaker. Now, I'm not putting him on the level of an auteur, but you can definitely see that the effort is there. And so there is so much to appreciate how he captures, the character Superman, all the relationships, what have you. Some really all-time great Superman moments in here, and to some extent, maybe future classic moments of the comic book genre that will be considered as such. But I do have a lot of issues with this movie. Structurally speaking, it doesn't quite fit together in the way that, perhaps feels the most natural. And also, I do think that one of my big issues with this movie, it feels very overstuffed. Like I said, there's a lot of characters I was naming off. Also, Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho is another standout as well. I really liked what he was able to do even under all the prosthetics, which, in a James Gunn movie are always great. But that's the thing. I mean, it's hard to really develop all these characters to the level that, perhaps necessitates an entire ensemble cast as big as this one. And I think some of the characters and actors get the short end of the stick, so to speak. And I really would have liked to see more with that. In this, of course, with James Gunn, it's going to be a hysterical movie. But I do think this is the case with the Guardians movies as well. Sometimes the humor is a bit overbearing and misplaced. And I do think you get a lot of that in here. As funny as this is, this could potentially be the funniest Superman movie, even though I think the humor in the first one does feel a little bit more natural in some aspects. And trust me, there's so many clever lines in this that, just really, really great, tight writing. But at the same time, I can't help to see the flaws of how this movie really came together. I mean, by the end of the film, I think the third act kind of dives into some very, I don't want to say generic, because this movie's so weird and so distinctive, but it feels like a very similar third act that we've seen in comic book movies many times that I'm kind of sick of. It's obviously not on the level of Man of Steel, but I really was kind of not checked out. I was invested in what was going on, but I was a little less interested by the end of the movie. And so, yeah, there's a lot of issues that I think if James Gunn really hones in on in the next film, he could end up creating one of the greatest comic book sequels of all time. I definitely think that actually might happen. But he really needs to reel it in a little bit. And look, I do think that there's a lot of room for improvement that I think we will see as the DCU goes on. I don't doubt that at all. But I think for what it is such a return to form for this character. The heart, the soul of what makes Superman, Superman has been lost for quite some time. And I think James Gunn has finally brought it back with David Corenswet and company. And I really also have to shout out the score here is really great, even though, of course, they have to repurpose the John Williams theme. I mean, how can you not, right? And I absolutely think that it was the right move. I think it does stand out, though, regardless, of course, when you're using that theme. But, the different variations and arrangements that they use with it, and kind of developing new themes as well. I really do have to shout out both John Murphy and David Fleming for the job they did in that department. And look, with all of that being said and more, I'm going to give Superman a 7.5 out of 10. I know, it sounds like, considering how positive I was on this movie, I just think some of the writing doesn't entirely work. As inspired as this movie is, there's a lot to improve on, and yet again, I cannot wait to see the sequel. I'm so glad this made over $120 million at the box office opening weekend. That's almost unheard of. I think it's apparently the highest opening Superman movie of all time, and also the second highest James Gunn superhero movie behind Guardians 2, which is a very impressive feat, I'd say, all across the board. This is going to be a big hit. It's going to be the hit of the summer, and sure, it's not one of the absolute best movies of the year, like I was hoping. It doesn't reinvent the comic book genre in any way we haven't seen before, but I do think it's a very, very faithful adaptation to Superman in a way that feels like a comic, A lot of these moments in this film feel like a comic book brought to life in live action. Not the panels necessarily, flying across the screen like it does in Spider-Verse, but I do feel that it does capture the heart and soul of what the Superman comics are. And for that, I think this is a great start to the DCU, and I can't wait to see what James Gunn and company cook up next year and going beyond that in the future. So yeah, guys, let me know what you thought about Superman down in the comments below. Did you absolutely love it? Is it one of your favorite Superman movies? Obviously, I think it's far and away the best movie since the 1978 film. Not really much competition, but I'm glad to say that it, satisfied in that regard. Or did you not like it? I don't know. Some people are kind of mixed on this. So let me know down in the comments below that and so much more. And please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more movie reviews like this. Next weekend is going to be kind of crazy. I'm going to New York City, so I am going to be seeing Eddington, which is another one of my most anticipated movies of the year that I'm about to check off the list. So definitely stay on the lookout for that sometime within the next week. Going to be talking about a lot of things in the future, so stay on the lookout for that and so much more, and I'll talk to you soon.